Welcome to the Susan Sly Project, where entrepreneurs rule, startups launch, and the side hustle becomes the main hustle. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Susan Sly.
Well, hey, what's up, everyone? Wherever you are, I hope you're having an incredible day. My guest today is one of my favorite humans. And in addition to being a spiritual teacher and happiness coach, he's helped people break free of negative patterns, myself included. And in fact, for many years, he was my business coach. So for those of you who have been longtime listeners, you're going to go under the hood in Susan's brain today. So might be scary. He's also the creator of the Rapid Enlightenment Process and the best-selling author of Quiet Mind, Epic Life, Escape the Status Quo, and Experience Enlightened Prosperity. And in addition to all of this, he is a tremendous human. He's a father. And in my humble opinion, he's helped more entrepreneurs truly break free and become high conscious leaders than anyone I know. So welcome Matthew Ferry to the show.
Whoop, whoop. Super glad to be here. Thanks for giving me such a concise intro too, because really you actually know, like we did it.
We did years and breaking through from not just limiting beliefs, which a lot of people do suffer from, but entrepreneurial anxiety. Let's just jump right in. Entrepreneurial anxiety is a disorder. Real. Yeah. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs. There are people who listen to the show. They watch the show. They're thinking of starting a business. They're starting a business and things get going along. And then suddenly it's like, boom, roadblock, and they're full of anxiety. What is going on with people? Do you think anxiety is higher than it was before, or it's just that we're feeling it more intensely now?
That's a good question. I've never actually even thought about it in that way. I think anxiety has probably been at a similar level for humans for a long time, but today we do live in a world where the possibility of being at peace is higher than it's ever been. So probably the contrast between those two things makes it more intense. But entrepreneurial anxiety is a real thing. It's something that I've experienced many, many times in my own career. I've started music businesses. I've had a clothing line. I've launched different products. I've done just over and over and over and over. And I will say that the vast majority of the things that I've done have failed. That's just reality. Maybe like 15% or something of the things that I've tried over my lifetime have actually worked. But getting through the anxiety and moving into a place of peace actually helps to create the clarity necessary to make good decisions and deal with the volatility and the craziness that happens whenever you're doing an entrepreneurial pursuit. So I think it's a real thing. I think that our bodies are really designed to move us away from potential failure, and unfortunately, failure is the way. Like if you don't fail, you're not succeeding. Period. Those two are synonymous; they go together.
Do you think people are becoming addicted to the feeling of anxiety because it's the new normal?
I don't know. It's not really my specialty per se to think about an anxiety in that way. But what I will say is this, is that each of us is genetically designed to avoid negativity. And we are hypersensitive to the potential of negativity. And our world is actually, like, if we look around, it's verifiably less negative now than it was 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 100 years ago. It's like by the numbers, everything is better, easier, and more functional. But we have come in with this software and hardware that isn't up to date with the evolution that we've experienced. We're on an exponential. So actually learning the techniques to control the thought process, remove what I call the drunk monkey, and go into a state of peace in what is a contentious, anxiety-filled environment is actually a master skill. And it's one that I'm really devoted to helping business leaders and entrepreneurs experience, because it's so powerful at getting your ideas to actually stick.
Oh, well, that whole concept of going into the shark infested waters, right? So as an entrepreneur, whether it's negotiating funding or an exit or thinking about like, okay, I've got to make sales to pay my staff. There is
Yep.
a lot of pressure as an entrepreneur. For people who don't know what the drunk monkey is, let's talk about that, because
All right, good.
that whole concept helped me so tremendously, because it allowed me to take back my power.
And it's an important component of the rapid enlightenment process. So there's four things that the rapid enlightenment process consists of. It's awareness of the drunk monkey and the unconscious reflexes. It's awareness of the motivation of the drunk monkey, which I call the hidden motives to survive. Then it is connecting with enlightened perspectives, which are simply perspectives that assume that all is well. And then it's the skill of recontextualization, being able to take whatever kind of sucks and rework it so that you're at least neutral, if not empowered. But let's go to the idea of the drunk monkey. When I was young, like 20 something, I had a mentor who said I had a monkey mind. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever, because back then I was a partying fool. And I was like, my mind is not a regular monkey. My mind is a wasted, crazy person. I have a drunk monkey in my head. And that stuck. And I've called it the drunk monkey ever since. And it's grammatically incorrect. Probably should be the drunken monkey, but that works for me, the drunk monkey. So the drunk monkey actually has these functions, and it's the mouthpiece for your survival mind. So the drunk monkey's going to try to look good. It's going to avoid embarrassment. It's going to try to fit in. It's going to do whatever it can to follow rules that don't even exist. It's going to actually defend illogical ideas, because those illogical ideas are actually part of the group that it wants to be a part of. So it'll defend things that cause you to malfunction. The drunk monkey, it thinks that it's psychic. So I don't know if you've ever heard your mind. My mind actually believes that it knows what the future is. It's completely loony. It is definitely a drunk, wasted monkey in there. And when you start to understand the functions of the drunk monkey, then you can see it as a biological mechanism rather than a trusted advisor. Because if you listen to the drunk monkey in your head like it's a trusted advisor, you will be filled with angst, even if the world is awesome.
And you work with so many, although you're not doing private coaching anymore. So just so no one call Matthew and be like, hey, can you coach me? But over the years, you've worked with incredibly high achieving individuals from a variety of industries. And we're talking people who, royalty, even royal family, just all of these incredible people. Is this something that everyone struggles with, or is it just,
100%.
Yes.
100%. I mean, you and I went through this together. It's like you had climbed to the top of the food chain, climbed to the top of the mountain, climbed to the top of the success mountain, the personal development mountain, the self-mastery mountain. Like when you and I met, you were a bona fide badass. And you were still like, Matthew, this is crazy. I'm like, I have it all, but I still go through these moments of like doubt and despair. And sometimes I get like angry for no reason. And it's crazy. I've mastered my mind, and yet my mind just comes and just bam, sideswipes me. And I just want you to know that is extremely common, because success does not equal happiness and peace. More money doesn't equal happiness and peace. There would be no reason for my billionaire clients to hire me, because they already have what we think should be providing them with everything that they need to be happy. They have everything. And yet they're still saying, why do I still feel like I'm a fraud? Why do I feel like I have to keep my foot on the gas pedal? Otherwise I'm going to lose. Why do I feel like I don't belong here? And here they were, they're at the top of the food chain right now. And it didn't solve the problem.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that, because you see a lot of people who, whether it's Instagram stardom, this whole influencer culture and flashing, whatever, their Rolex or their Bentley, and they think that it's going to bring them happiness, but it's so empty. And I had the concierge for billionaires on my show, and he wrote the book Spearfishing. outstanding guy. And he's done stuff for like Elton John and Elon Musk, like the things that when you're a multi-billionaire, you're like, what's going to make me happy? So I'm going to rent out the Sistine Chapel and, I'm going to do all these things. Yeah. But he kept saying it's just one emptiness after another, because there's the anticipation and the letdown, the anticipation and the letdown. And that happens to so many people. So what is someone, watching and listening, Matthew, and they're going, oh my gosh, this is me. My highs are really high. My lows are really low. I've achieved, but I still feel I haven't achieved anything. I know I have the drunk monkey. Where do they start?
I think that the beginning is to actually discern something called your most cherished experience. And you and I synced up beforehand and determined that we should give everybody a copy of my 60 plus page enlightened goal setting workbook. And I think that that's where people should start, because if you can get connected to your most cherished experience, the experience that is so amazing that you could be in the middle of the worst part of your entire life and day, and reconnect with that experience and instantaneously have all those negative feelings go away. Like if you have that, then all of a sudden you start to have some energy to be able to discern, oh, wow, there's the drunk monkey pretending it's psychic again. Hey, there's me forecasting a future like I know what's supposed to happen. Oh, wow, I'm avoiding making mistakes that aren't real. I'm attached to imaginary futures that don't exist, but I'm having an exaggerated fear right now that if I lose that thing that doesn't even exist, I will be in a bad place, right? You can't see all that stuff unless you start with this idea of like, well, what is it that I actually do want to experience? Because most people believe that they want to experience some variation on greed and pride. And actually, anything that leads back to greed and pride will create anxiety and upset and frustration and negativity, whether you want it to or not. And it is absolutely shocking. Like if we look at the concierge to billionaire guy, right? Basically what he's going to point it to is like, here's something that this guy did to have more pride, and it didn't work. Here's somebody that this did to feel like they are better than everybody else. Didn't work. Greedy, didn't work. Over and over and over and over. These are called hidden motives to survive.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you say this, because one of the things you taught me was you don't want something, Susan, you want the experience of that thing. And I remember we were having this conversation and you were like, well, what do you really want? And I said, oh gosh, I'd love to have a home in Italy. And you were telling me about a client you have who had like homes all over the place. And he never went to any of them. And it was causing him all this anxiety because he owned them. He didn't go to them. Then there was the upkeep and the maintenance and so on. And you said to me, and you called me out and you said, Susan, you just want that experience. Do you need to own a home in Italy to have that experience? And the thing I would ask you, Matthew, so when an entrepreneur, especially someone who's first getting started, and they're taking on suddenly what they fear is all of this risk, and they start to revert back to patterns, to even some very old patterns to sort of self-soothe. So whether it's marijuana or it's alcohol or whatever it is, how can they turn that around, even though it feels for some people so good to feel so bad?
Well, first of all, marijuana does not feel bad, nor does alcohol. Those things feel amazing, extraordinary, exceptional. And I was a full throttle user of those things until I was 36 years old, at which time I realized that I was essentially looking for enlightenment in all the wrong places. And that the thing that I was seeking,
right there.
Looking for enlightenment in all the wrong places. Yep. But I was looking for that feeling that all is well. I was looking for the feeling of trusting in life, and knowing that I was going to be okay. That's the feeling that we're all looking for. And there's nothing wrong with drugs and alcohol at all. And I'm not against them in any way. What I find is that when a person takes on transcending their survival consciousness and ascending into enlightened frameworks, they tend to naturally just give those things up or radically modify them downward, because like, I don't need to modify myself with something external in order to feel what I'm actually practicing feeling, right? That's what taking on an enlightened framework does. You practice feeling what you want. You want an experience. You didn't want the house in Italy. You wanted what you thought it would give you. And then when we figured out, well, what will that feeling be? This is the enlightened goal setting process. What will that feeling be? Then you were like, well, this is the feeling right here. And I said, great. Now we're going to figure out how to have that feeling every single place in your life. Now we're just going to juice it up. You're going to be like that little monkey in the cage that keeps pressing the orgasm button. Woo! Yeah. Oh yeah. Let me think about it. Woo! Right? It's going to be like, give me another treat. You have the power. You have the power to press that button on your own. You don't need the external thing. Now, I don't blame or shame anybody who is utilizing those external means. Go for it. Have fun. Do it. But you're actually looking for something that is contained within you. You're using that external source to modify your feelings downward to deal with the implied risk that you are dealing with as an entrepreneur. And it's risky, but I want to give them a technique from my book, Quiet Mind, Epic Life, that they can use to help be more peaceful with the risk. Can we do that?
Sure.
Something you and I have done a bunch of. It's called the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to find your positivity is to be as negative as you possibly can, to be as extreme in your negativity as you can possibly get. And when you do that, when you face the negativity and you own it, it transforms. What you accept will transform. What you resist will persist. So here's what I would recommend to all of our entrepreneur brothers and sisters out there. Here's a little, we're going to take some bong hits on enlightened perspectives rather than bong hits on weed. Here we go. So you start by writing out the thing that the drunk monkey fears the most. And the drunk monkey has got a phenomenal imagination. So what you do is you write out the absolute worst thing that's going to happen. The company fails. You're a failure. You've lost all your money. You're embarrassed. One of my clients, his failure was so epic that he was like all over the newspaper as like the number one failure in this category. It was really bad. And so you start by doing that. You actually fantasize on purpose about the worst thing that could happen if everything unravels. Then step 2 is you make a plan for the worst. So you're like the government. You know how like the government, you just imagine they've got like a piece of paper in a glass container over there on the wall. And then it's just like, if the shit hits the fan, break glass, right? And you go over and you break it, you open it up, and it's the contingency plan if everything goes wrong. You have to write that contingency plan if everything goes wrong. And then you have to make peace with it. Because if you can be at peace with that contingency plan, you will be at peace. Yeah. Because the drunk monkey will have nothing to fantasize about. Because the drunk monkey will go like, yeah, but what about all those things? And you're like, yeah, but remember the plan? And then the drunk monkey goes, oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, cool. We're good. And now all of a sudden, you're in a better place. From that more neutral place, you can then open yourself up to a whole nother set of creativity, resourcefulness, chutzpah. I will tell you, Kristen, my wife, and I, we do the worst case scenario planning all the time. And the reason that we do it all the time now is that what we found is usually contained within the worst case scenario is a whole bunch of stuff that we want to do. So we'll write out the worst case scenario, and then it's like, well, wait a second. Why do we have to wait for the worst case to do that? Let's just do that now. And we'll immediately get some new ideas and some new ways forward that came out of being completely willing to deal with the most negative situation possible. So, and I just want to make sure that our listener understands this idea. You don't write the plan to avoid the worst case scenario. You write the plan if the worst case scenario happens. Here's what I'm going to do. That's the way out.
Yeah.
That'll help them a lot.
It is so liberating. And this release from, oh, well, okay. So, oh, this deal doesn't go through. And then, okay, then then what happens? Oh, then I don't have money to pay my staff. And then I have to lay off my staff. And then you just keep writing and writing and writing. And then suddenly the anxiety is very sticky. It has nothing left to attach to. And we have a mutual friend, and he was going to, do you remember the story? So he was in real estate. He did some real estate investments, and he didn't realize that one of the people he was doing a real estate investment with was not the most savory of characters, and he was going to get arrested. And so he does the worst case scenario, and he's writing it. And on Monday, they're going to take him away. And to make a long story short, they ended up dropping all the charges. And when we're so attached to whatever that is, the anxiety is so sticky. What we think about, we bring about. Napoleon Hill said it. Wallace D. Waddell said it. It's written about in the Bible. It's written about in the Torah. So when you stop thinking about it because you've already lived it, you've let it go, now suddenly your brain comes up with all of these creative opportunities, right? And I learned that from you, and I can't even tell you how many times I'll just sit and I'll journal. Okay, so if this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then so what? And the other thing that's cool, I love that you mentioned this, like what you and Kristen discovered in this process was, we don't have to wait to do those things. The thing that I've discovered is there were things that I was thinking about in the background that I thought, well, if this, then this. And I thought, you know what? I'm not as attached to that, this or that as I thought I was. Right. And it's allowed me to live in a place of loving detachment of the material, of places, all of these things. If you're if you're listening on podcast, Matthew is dancing right now. That's what he's doing. He's like, it's about friggin' time, Susan.
Woo! Yeah, baby. Well, detachment is interesting. The mutual friend that we're talking about, who, accidentally did a transaction with an unsavory character and was being investigated by the FBI. He actually went to a hotel with his fiance at the time with a gun, and he was going to kill himself because he was positive that he was going to go to jail. And in that moment, he had the sort of epiphany to, well, what if I did go to jail? Like, what would I do? And he wrote out like who he would be and what he would do in jail, not to avoid jail, but in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And he got so inspired by who he would be in jail and what he would do from jail to be a contributor to the underdogs of the planet, which is his favorite group, that he essentially put the gun away and said, fine, if I go to jail, I'm going to jail. And he went home, and the FBI never called him again. Yeah. And he has now become the inspiration that he saw in that moment. Like, that moment changed his life forever by doing the worst case scenario and figuring out like, oh, wow, you know what? That's not that bad.
Why do you think that is? When we really, we talk about there's sayings like forgive and forget, just let it go. Very few people in my experience actually do forgive and forget, and they actually, very few let it go. Why do you think it is, though, that when there is a true release of it, that the circumstance changes in the natural? Why, in your opinion, why is that?
Well, we'll start with the biological imperative to hold grudges. So there's an imperative that each of us has. It's an evolutionary advantage, and that is to hold a grudge. So there's something that is negative that you hate, you don't like it, and then you hold it in mind. And you hold it in mind because that's a super effective way to avoid it in the future. So you walk over, you pet a dog, the dog bites you. The next time you see a dog, you actually have a physiological response. That's a grudge. So the idea of forgive and forget, forgive and let go, and all of that stuff, it's wonderful. New age bumper sticker wisdom. It's wonderful. I love it. It's impractical because you're actually hardwired for the opposite, and the possibility of you doing it is very, very low unless you understand the mechanisms that are in place. So the first thing to do is to identify your grudges and to release them. I would say this though, if you don't know what your most cherished experience is, like if you don't go through the enlightened goal setting process and get connected to what your most cherished experience is, it's not likely you're going to see the grudges that you're holding on to. The grudges will seem real. But when you compare and contrast them to your most cherished experience, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a second, why am I holding on to that? And now you'd be willing to go through the process. And it is a process. It's not magic. It's not like, and now I know my most cherished experience, everything changes. It's not like that. There's real work involved in you going into a state of profound peace of mind. But let's say that you do that and you do change your mind and you have an epiphany like you've had in the past, or like our friend has had. Why does that change everything? Well, it changes everything for two reasons. One, your consciousness goes up. So that means that you expand what you can see. So you suddenly see more than what you were seeing before. So all of a sudden you're like, whoa, hey, somebody turned on the lights. There's a whole thing of dust bunnies over there in the corner. I need to get a vacuum for that. That's gross. You see more. And as your consciousness goes up, you accept more. So those are the two variables, what you could see and what you accept. When you see more and you accept more, it changes your perspective. When it changes your perspective, it changes your behavior and your decision making. Early man thought that the world was flat, and that affected their behavior. So they would look out at the horizon and say, I'm sticking close to the coastline. I'm not going out there where I'm going to fall right off. Then it's like, uh-oh, wait a second. Actually, new piece of information, the world is round. And then suddenly those brave adventurers, like our listeners, right? If our listeners are entrepreneurs, brave adventurers. Those brave adventurers got that new piece of information and used it to go and push the limits and explore farther than anyone had ever gone before. They didn't need new skills. They didn't have to become better sailors. They had the same skills, the same boats, the same everything. It's just that the context changed. And when the context changes, it changes their mind, their thinking, their world, their behavior, their decision making. Everything changes, and that'll change your world. Make better decisions, you'll have better life, period.
That was like a mic drop, Lady Gaga. So yeah. The thing I'm most excited about the enlightened goal setting process is, I think about the years we coached. Matthew coached me. So many things happened. I mean, my wealth increased, my self-worth increased, the value of what I was adding in the world. I cleaned up a lot of stuff. Matthew mentioned the dust bunnies. There were a lot of dust bunnies, and people kept saying to me, wow, you seem so different. And I didn't realize that I was that person entering a room with the anxiety, with the fear, with the proving, all of those things. And you taught me how to become an amazing manifester. And it was through that. Some of the listeners, if you've been with me for a while, they know the story of how I met Wayne Dyer, and Dr. Wayne Dyer, and I'll give Matthew the credit. So through this process of enlightened goal setting that Matthew taught me, so I wanted to meet Dr. Wayne Dyer. And one thing I knew was he did Bikram yoga, and I would go to Maui, and I kept saying, I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer. And I kept visualizing that I would meet Wayne. And so I go to the yoga studio, and I said to one of the gals, is that someone's regular spot? And she said, yeah, but he's not here today. And I said, cool. So I take the spot. Afterwards, we start talking, and I said, oh, is the person whose spot I took, hopefully they, they're okay. And she said, oh no, it's Dr. Wayne Dyer. Do you know who he is? He's traveling for speaking. And I said, of course I know who he is. We start this conversation. She said, he's a close friend of mine. He needs to hear your story. I'm literally at the airport flying out the next day, and my phone rings, my old BlackBerry, and I haven't gotten rid of it, Matthew, because the voicemail is still on there. And it's this voice. I say hello, and it's like, Susan. And I'm like, hello. He said, this is Wayne Dyer. And I was like, Dr. Dyer. Anyway, so Wayne and I became friends. And I mention the story because the work is so important, and the sequence is so important. And I see a lot of people trying to skip steps. Like Matthew and I don't think you should be drinking and doing drugs, because my mother was an addict, and she passed 2 years ago. She was an alcoholic. She was an addict, and she used to avoid experiencing anything. And if you need to take something to get to an experience, then that thing owns you. And if something owns you, you're not living your life. So that's my throwdown. But this work, when you start the process and you start in step one, it changes everything. So yep. I'm so excited for everyone.
Me too.
And yeah,
we should give them we made up a custom URL just for them. And so it's Matthew and Susan, I can't remember, Enlightened Goal Setting or goal setting, right? Matthew and Susan, goalsetting.com, and then that'll redirect you to the right page. So go to Matthew, and my name has 2 T's, Mathew, Matthew and Susan, and spelled out. Okay, goalsetting.com. Do that, because it really comes down to this. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to find an authentic way to be at peace while kicking ass, living your dream, finding and living your purpose. If you want to find a way to rise above that negativity and the anxiety and all the looping thoughts that are distracting you from living the life that you want, then you found the right podcast. This is the one for you. It's like your intuition led you to the right spot. You clicked on the right one. This is it. This will change your life. All you got to do is go through the process of the workbook, and you're just going to be, wow, your jaw will be on the ground. It's so cool. And it works for poppers, and it works for billionaires. It works for go-getters, and it works for people who are like, I don't know what I want to do. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I love it.
You and I worked together. I was looking at my notes here. I went and looked at my files. We worked together for 5 years in this process. And we did the
best years of your life.
Yeah, baby. We did the Enlightened Goal Setting workshop together every quarter of every one of those years. So we did the Enlightened Goal Setting process together 4 times a year for 5 years, 20 times. And your life accelerated in ways that were absolutely unreal. When you called me back and you're like, I was thinking about you. And so I just thought I should touch base, and we connected. This was a few weeks ago. I literally, my jaw was on the ground. The spot that you're in today, it is so far from where you were. I mean, you were way over there. And now today you are sitting in this incredible spot. I'm so incredibly proud of you. And I'm so I'm so enthusiastic about the possibility of your listeners taking this on and jumping in and doing some enlightened goal setting themselves. I think that there's some incredible stories that you and I get to be privy to later when people are like, I listened to that show and I download the thing and you're not going to believe it, right? It's that kind of thing. It's going to be so cool.
And I love that your work is so tangible, because the thing I want to say to everyone is, yes, you could sit at the end of the dock and visualize a feather and, you know, all that stuff. You and I have mutual friends who were in The Secret. We've done it, right?
Yep.
But the process of going through this work and these steps to be able to, and I didn't even tell you this because this just happens really cool. So you know, I enrolled at MIT, and the listeners, some might know that I failed calculus in university, right? So I'm like, and my dad, when I was growing up, was like, someday you'll go to MIT. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I failed first year calculus in university. I'm like, I'm not going to MIT now. So when I became the co-CEO of Radius and co-founder, and I enroll at MIT, you know, the drunk monkey's like, who do you think you are? You're stupid. You failed calculus. And I did. I went and I was like, worst case scenario, okay, whatever. So I was taking one of my classes, Matthew, and it was a class on strategy and negotiation. And so they break us into groups. They give us this case study, and it's me and 4 guys. And I said, you know, I'll just, you know, who wants to be the lead negotiator? No one wants to be the lead negotiator. I'm like, you know, have any of you read Chris Voss's book, you know, Never Split the Difference? No one had. And I'm like, oh crap. And so I'm like, here are some pointers for negotiation. They're like, Susan, you should be the lead negotiator. To make a long story short, there were 4 negotiation teams. So 8 teams, but 4 on one side, 4 on the other. And it was, we're negotiating an old case. It was with Frank, Kearns versus Ford. So I was on Kearns' team, and then I used all the NLP techniques in the book. I did everything. Our team. So the professor goes, okay, what are the results? One team got no deal. Another team got no deal. Another team got a $25 million deal. My team got $85 million.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And the reason I share this story is going from, just to summarize why you need to do this process. Every single one of you, thousands of you all around the world, is because it works. You know, some of you write me and you're like, well, you know, you do so much, you're going to MIT, you have this company of this, because Matthew helped me see that the drunk monkey doesn't have to control me, that I can decide like that without the use of hallucinogenics or alcohol or anything, that I can decide like that to turn something around. And that's what I want for all of you.
But let me point to, for our listener, exactly what we're talking about. What Susan has and what you can have too is more mental real estate. And if you have the drunk monkey jamming negative stuff down your throat on a regular basis, if you are looping with scenarios of this kind, if you're arguing with your business partner in the car, but your business partner is not there, it's just in your head, then you don't have the bandwidth to do the kinds of things that Susan is talking about. The bandwidth, that mental real estate, gets cleared up when your mind quiets down and you're no longer burdened by what I call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that's a common term, but it's something that is real for entrepreneurs. And when I'm talking to my clients, I'm like, yo, what the FUD? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt has got you. Let's go through the process. And I think where your listener can really take their game to the next level is not through the skill development, which I want them to do. And it's not through better negotiation, which I want them to do too. It's actually starting by freeing up the mental real estate to make the best choice for what is next. That's what my work is about. I don't teach people anything. I just help people to have a really quiet mind so they can be clear and free to do the things that they want to do.
More mental real estate. I love that. Should we mention that this tool is free? I don't know that we did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it is free.
It's free.
It is free. And my book isn't free. If you want to buy my book, it's Quiet Mind, Epic Life. But if you want to get the 60-page workbook, go to MatthewandSusanGoalsetting.com and grab that thing. And I mean, it's full blown. This is full throttle. Like, this is not, we're not doing the light version. We're doing the only for the hardcore version. And the reason that I do that is that I'm qualifying, because the types of people that I work with are full throttle. I don't work with the people who are, kind of doing it. I work with the people who are like crazy level doing it.
Oh, and if you're crazy level doing it, go to MatthewandSusanGoalsetting.com. Well, yeah. Matthew, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to have you back and have this whole discussion about mental real estate, especially when it's so easy for people to fill their mind with, whether it's stuff going on politically or stuff going on with the pandemic or whatever it is. It's so easy to do that and then finish the year and go, crap, I didn't accomplish anything. So I would love to have you back. And
yes,
for everyone, if you haven't heard my interview with Steve Sims, the concierge to billionaires, there are some fun stories in there. And I highly recommend you check that out. But anyway, Matthew, love you. Love to Kristen. Thanks so much for being here. And thanks for everything you're doing in the world. Thank you for everything you've done for me and continue to do for me.
OMG. I mean, likewise, I feel so blessed to have you in my life. Thank you for supporting me and getting my message out there into the world. And I hope that we made a difference for the listeners today.
Absolutely. So if this show has been helpful, drop a 5-star review if you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening. And if you're on YouTube, drop a comment below. I would love to read your comments. It's actually me who reads your comments. So be nice, because if you're not nice, I'm a nice person. So let's be nice together. So anyway, with that, God bless, go rock your day. And I will see you on a future episode of Raw and Real Entrepreneurship.